Yes, what's up, guys? So or it feels like it's been a while since I made a video. When I checked, as at the day I'm making this video, I checked like when I made my last video, and I was just like, oh, it was like 2 weeks ago. Doesn't feel all that. It's not really that long, but I don't know. It feels that way, and I think it feels that way for me, especially because I've not really been in a creative process. I guess for a while, I've just been you know, barely hanging on, if that's the word to use, barely hanging on and just flowing through time, I guess. If you want to put it like that, flowing through time. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of stuff. So actually with this channel as well, I'm trying to figure out what direction I need the channel to go, I want the channel to go without losing the essence of why I created this channel in the first place. So that being said, I've been good. I hope you've been good as well. The month of July, it's very interesting. When it feels like you are chasing time, I guess. When it feels like you are chasing time, time can really feel like it's moving faster than it should. But just in the month of July, I was telling a friend yesterday, and it feels like we just have 2 months left for the year to be over. Meanwhile, we just basically crossed like the halfway mark into the year, and yeah, the first half of the year is gone, and the second half of the year there's a lot of progress that can still be made. Anyway, with all that being said, I want to take the time today to answer a couple of questions that you guys sent to me. So firstly, let me apologize by saying that this was supposed to be like a podcast episode, but when the questions kept coming in, they felt much more personal, right? Only very few questions felt like questions that I could have a conversation with people about. So if you are reading this, if you sent a question to me, I'll most probably address it in this video. And if I don't address it in this video, it's probably going to be it's probably going to be in the podcast segment that I want to do with my friends. I spoke about that on my social media. Anyway, yeah, so let's just get right into it. I wrote down all the questions. I wrote down all the questions I got. Most of them are very similar. Like just so I might be skipping over some of them if I feel like I've answered it, just to not make this video very long, and also to make sure that I I'm not being repetitive. So yeah, first question, which is under like life mindset spirituality, because I had to group the questions kind of. Person said, how can someone overcome parental issues like separation and emotional abuse? That's a very deep question. In fact, I think I would address this question with my friends, right? So I might be skipping over this question because when I told him to, you know, elaborate, or when I told him to like expand on the question, he took a turn in the question that I don't think I relate to personally. So I think I have a couple of friends that have one or two opinions about it. So I think I will leave that to them. Number two, what do you think about attending church devotions or sermons as it relates to spirituality, growth, and discipline? I have a very, as a lot of people know, and if you know me personally, I have a very interesting take on church or churches, spirituality, growth, faith. But this is what I'm just going to say, right? And it might sound surprising to many people, but if it helps you get closer to who you want to be, I think it can be very helpful. Now, my problem is a lot of churches, right, basically don't help Christians become better Christians, right? Or let me put it this way: if you, if you, okay, this is my simple logic when it comes to and when it comes to churches in Nigeria or churches. in churches generally, sorry. Right? My logic is very simple. So my logic is with the amount of churches that we have in the country, right? And this is very interesting because I'm back home, I'm back in Lagos, as you can see. Came to visit my aunt for a while, and my big mommy because she doesn't like when I call her auntie. I came to visit my big mommy for like a couple of weeks, a couple of days, right? And she's a very big church person, right? And she had me go to church on Sunday, like this last Sunday. So while I was walking to church, because she left me at home, and it was just me that had to come to church myself. So I walked on our street and I could count like six churches, and I was just like, what? So yeah, back to my point, right? With the amount of churches that and religious organizations, not just churches now, by the way, that we have in this country, we should not have the morality that we have as a nation. That's that. I think that's a very logical standpoint to have. And as someone that my father is a pastor, my mother is a pastor as well, and by GS3, I had already finished reading the Bible like twice. So I really know a lot about the scriptures. Let me put it that way. And there's a lot of things that, and I think that was when my withdrawal from the church began. Because I look at the scriptures and I see the things they do in the church, and I'm like, this doesn't kind of relate. But like, I don't want to drift too far. So that's just what I'm going to say. If you study your scripture and your church and your spiritual gathering gets you a step closer to being a better Christian, then by all means. But I think that's also a question where you have to really, really reflect on, like, is the church I'm attending, is where I am helping me become a better Christian? If no, I guess that's your answer. I guess you have your answer, sorry. Mm, okay, yeah. So this question is also very interesting. So talk about what you are currently going through and how you are fighting through it when life gets overwhelming. So I've been very off and on social media this year. Sometimes I take a month off. I say I take a couple weeks off, then I come back. So that is that inconsistency, as I always have to come back and like apologize to people. So I'm sorry I didn't get response to your message, and also tell them like I have stuff I'm dealing with. So that's where this question is coming out from. So talk about what I'm going through. I think I did in the $20,000 video that I did. So I raised money from investors last year. I'm struggling to meet up with my financial expectations this year, and half of the year is basically gone. So that can be really depressing, right? Secondly, I'm struggling and dealing with a very, very bad breakup. Um um I broke up from a very like somewhat long term relationship last year, and that breakup felt like a final breakup for many reasons, right? And so it has really been a struggle letting go. It has really been a struggle sitting in this new life, and seeing that this person that you love, right, you probably will not hear from them, or the relationship dynamics is not going to be the same anymore. So I'm having problems dealing with that as well. What else? Yeah, and also I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to find more meaning to my life. I'm trying to find more purpose, or I'm trying to really I highlight my. Will I say highlights? I wouldn't really use the word highlight, but I'll say trying to find like a combination of everything I want to achieve, and then just make streamlining it into like what my purpose is actually going to be. So that has been difficult, and that has been overwhelming as well. And yeah, so I think that's that. Third question: how is life moving out of your parents' house, and would you advise others to do it immediately after university? Hmm, that's a very interesting question as well. That's a very interesting question. So I would love to approach this question from a very logical standpoint. Right? Leaving your parents' house in Nigeria is very different from leaving your parents' house in Canada or America and all that stuff. It can get really difficult. And a lot of people don't I think a lot of people don't plan for the part of it. Right? I see, my advice is that it's great. Honestly, the independence is great. I've been enjoying it so far. I get to do things based on my own timing, right? But I did not also do it out of like it wasn't like out of rebellion. Yeah, that's the word to use. It wasn't out of rebellion. It was more so out of I need this space to grow, and I need this space to find myself, and I need this space to figure out life. And that is why I'm taking the step. That's why I took the step that I did. I think I mentioned that in the very first video that I made as well on YouTube. So yeah, would I advise it? Honestly, 100% I would, because as a young person, also your age is also like a factor. I left university at the age of 23. Yeah, I left university 23. So I felt like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of ready for this world. And all my life I've kind of, not all my life, like for a good sum of my life, I've lived on my own, kind of like not just on my like you get my point. Secondary school, I was in a boarding school for 6 years. University, another 6 years, living basically by yourself, but I mean with other people as well. So it wasn't going to be like a brand new experience of me just doing stuff by myself or on my own. Right. So yeah, I definitely would recommend, but I also think that you should do it logically. Like you should get the place that you can afford. You should also be careful of the kind of people you let in your space as well. So yeah, why do people who read self-help books often act or feel like they are better or know better than everyone else? That's a very that's a very interesting question. And I think it's an interesting question because I would take both sides of the argument, right? I would take both sides of the discussion as to why they might feel that way. I started reading couple of years back. And I think I've said this so many times on this channel. Like if you've seen my past videos, that I started reading to help my attention span, right? And from there, I got to love reading, and I got to have a different kind of worldview when I read, right? So I could understand, and reading is like it's very eye opening, right? Especially if you're someone that you've always lived your life in a box, right? You already lived your life. When I mean in a box, you've already lived your life with only your experiences, right? Or seeing the world from only your lens, right? Books help you to see the world from another individual's lens, and that can be a very eye-opening experience. Like, oh, there's a bigger world out there than this. So I think when you become aware of that, or when you become aware of like, oh, for instance, now trying to gain your attention span back by reading. I started reading, left social media, I stopped doom scrolling. So now having that awareness, looking at someone that is still inside our bubble, right? Letting the internet control their life. You as an individual that just got exposed to like you could have a better life than this. I could see why they would feel that way. Like, oh, if when they read self-help books, they could feel like they're better than most people. Because honestly, would I say they are better than most people? In some aspects, yes. In some aspects, yes. Because when you read all those kind of books, you realize how simple most individuals are, how most individuals don't really care about improving themselves, how most individuals are just going through life as, just winging it, basically. So, yes, I could understand why they would feel that way. But is it right? I don't think it is. I don't think that, just because you are more enlightened than other people, enlightened in quotes makes you better than them. Because another thing about reading self-help books is that I've read self-help books for now about 2 years now. Yeah, I think 2 years constantly reading mostly self-help books, and I want to make it like a pledge to myself that this year is going to be the last year that I read self-help books. Because one of the things that you also realize about self-help books is that after a while it gets repetitive, right? There are only a handful of them that will actually help you, right? Like Atomic Habits, very good, great book, helped me a lot. Helped me a lot because it made me understand that like goals are just one half of the story, right? If you have goals and you don't have system, your goals are basically pointless. So books like Atomic Habits help me a lot. 40 Laws of Power, even if a lot of people like to trash it, I think you should read it. I think everybody should read it for very specific reasons, because if you go through life, you understand. And during my time doing student leadership, it taught me like a lot about life that I learned from that book, because a lot of people would try to play power politics on you, and you have to be aware that oh okay, I see what you're doing, right? So I think that book also helped me, right? And a ton of other books. 12 Rules for Life, I think, is one of my best books ever. Jordan Peterson. I think everybody should should also be a book that you should pick up and read. I was gifted Ego is the Enemy. I always say that that book I read it at the I read it too early, right? I read it too early, but it was a very great book too as well. What else? The trading because I trade financial markets. So the trading sorry, I'm trying to remember the name of the book now. It's very, very popular in the trading space, but it basically helped me my psychology. I would put a picture of the book as well. Yeah, so books like that helped me a lot. And then after, I kind of realized that a lot of subsequent books I've been reading just don't repeat the same stuff. There are only a handful of books that really help you, like when you're trying to achieve something, right? So yeah, that's a long answer to that short question. How do you handle pressure? How do I handle pressure? I just soak it in, I guess. I think that's what I just do. I just soak it in. I just realize that like um whether or not I give into the pressure or not, like I have to get this done. So I just soak it in and I just embrace it, and I turn out fine regardless. How do you consistently look in leaving social media, staying focused? Ah, this year has been one of the years where I have struggled a lot and trying to lock in. Right. I think last year was the worst. Right, I think last year was the worst because I had a lot of stuff going on last year. So it was very difficult for me to. I didn't really read as much last year. I didn't really go to the gym last year. I was occupied with a lot of stuff and I was not just disciplined enough. So yeah, how do I constantly lock in? I think again systems. Again systems. You can only do so much with like brain work. Like, oh, I'll force my mental, bro. You can only do so much with that. I promise you. You can only do so much. It can only take you so far, right? You have to set up systems like, okay, I would when I wake up, I would do this, and you make it easier for yourself to do. Let me give you an example. If you want to make it easier for yourself to go to the gym the next day, you can just lay out your gym clothes by your bed before you go to bed the previous night. So when you wake up, you first of all you have a constant reminder, and secondly, you don't have to really think of like, because all those things too can help you like what do I wear today? Oh, I'm not going Jerry. You get, so you have to set up systems in place. Systems would help you to consistently or stay consistent. Basically, that's how I am able to consistently lock in, I guess. And leaving social media, it's I just sometimes when I get overwhelmed, I just do, or when I realize like I'm getting to a point of my life where I'm mindlessly scrolling again, I just cut it off. That's why I just delete it from my phone. And even if it's a couple of weeks, couple of days, I feel like it's progress towards something, right? Let me just be sure that this thing has been recording. So Does success ever get to the point where you tell yourself it's enough, or do you just go through life always searching for opportunities and hungry for more? Interesting question. Because I had this argument with my friend Michael like 2, 3 months ago. Like, do you? I feel like it's a very nuanced question, right? I feel like it's very nuanced, and you know, for me, because I always say that like I have a certain amount of money that I would make, and I would just be like, yeah, I'm done, right? But here's the catch. Here's the catch. Some people genuinely would not stop searching for more, right? Some people genuinely not stop searching for more because as you level up, your lifestyle levels up. You have to keep up with your lifestyle. A lot of things like that. Different reasons why some people are always hungry for more. Some people are just very competitive, right? And some people are forced to keep wanting more, right? So that's why I said the conversation is very nuanced. Some people are forced to keep wanting more. Let me explain what I mean by some people are forced to keep wanting more. Um, for instance, you start a business, right? And you grow, you tell yourself, if I get to $1 million in revenue, or if I get to $1 million in profit, I'll quit. But like when you get to $1 million in profit, right? Even if the money that you have saved up and invested can take care of your life forever, why some people not quit and keep striving for more is because now a lot of people depend on that business that they are doing, right? A lot of people, like, it's just, for instance, now when people say things like, oh, yeah, you're a billionaire, why can't Elon Musk just stop, just walk away? He already has 1 trillion. I'm like, okay, first of all, it's not $1 trillion in cash, it's $1 trillion in valuation, right? So what all his various companies or investments are valued at, right? So he can't just decide that, oh, today he wants to walk out of SpaceX or he wants to walk out of Tesla, because a lot of things will go wrong with him just stepping out, right? A lot of people might lose their jobs. You get a lot of people might start to sell off the company. The company might lose its value because they feel like the person driving the company is no longer present. You get my point? So a lot of people get to that point in life where they are like, okay, even if they've gotten to a point in life where they are satisfied with everything around them, they basically just can't quit because a lot of things are attached to that business. A lot of people are employed, investors, and stuff like that. So when you have investors and you have shareholders, sometimes you have to keep leveling up and keep making sure they are providing shareholder value. So yeah, I think that's the answer to that. How would you navigate a sudden shift where everything turns upside down, losing your portfolio and feeling like you shouldn't be in this position after hustling so hard? I can absolutely relate to that, right? I can absolutely relate to that. And I'll get there because someone asked me about like how much I made, or trading the financial markets. And so I'll get to that point where you feel like you made something and then you lost it, or how do you navigate that whole experience? I feel like everybody needs to go through a learning curve, right? And me, I see it as a learning curve. I don't really, in as much as there are things that pressuring me right now. As I said, I have like investors that I have to make due on. I also have my own life that I have to finance. In as much as I don't really look at a lot of things from a, oh, I've lost everything perspective. I look at it from more of a like, okay, what did I learn from this experience and what am I going to do differently? Right. So I think you have to change your mindset. I think you have to change your mindset because now I know that certain things that happened to me last year, this year, it will never happen to me again. Right. Getting involved in some business dealings, um, you know, just life basically. Right. I will never make those mistakes again. Right. Especially money mistakes. And yeah, I'll get there like at some point. But yeah, you have to shift your mindset towards looking at it as lesson rather than as life, being bad for you, because what you made before you can make again. But this time you get to keep more of it because you've learned your lessons from your past mistakes, basically. How do you cope with feeling like a failure, struggling, and questioning if life is worth it while living with your parents and seeing peers afford things? Hmm. Interesting question. So one of the things that I love about myself Yeah, I would say that one of the things I love about myself, and I think that everybody should incorporate, even if it's very difficult, because I feel like a lot of people also say like say it like it's easy, but it's not easy. Actually, it can be difficult. And as I was saying, one of the things I love about myself is that I don't really look at other people's timelines or what other people are doing compared to mine. I don't really compare a lot. Yeah, I don't really compare a lot because I feel like everybody's journey in life is very, very different, right? I feel like everybody's journey in life is very, very different. And I feel like when you know where you're heading to, I think it's very difficult for you to compare your life to other people because what makes them happy does not make you happy, right? And what they do is not what you are probably doing. So you have to get very comfortable with first removing yourself from like seeing people do stuff and you can't do it, especially when you are young and you have like years in front of you to still achieve and to still do a lot of stuff. So how do I navigate, cope feeling like a failure? I don't really like, I wouldn't say I haven't felt that way before, but like now that I've understood like what failure really means, I think I made a video about failure too in on YouTube. Is that I don't see I now I have like a very changed mindset on what I think failure is than what I think it used to be before. Right. And I just realized that failure is really just a stepping stone to progress, right? You have to like it's inevitable. You can't start something today and become excellent at it tomorrow. So like you need failure as I also wrote like a LinkedIn article on this as well. I will link it in the description too. So yeah, you just have to have like you have to change your mindset as to what failure means to you, right? So what path forward is there for a fresh graduate who feels useless, helpless, without a clear skill or income, and like their world is upside down? I feel like your answer is in the question. That's just the truth. Now, hear the question again. What path forward is there for a fresh graduate who feels, oh god, my laptop will soon die. Ah, I thought I charged this laptop. So before my laptop dies, I'll answer this. I'll answer this quick. So, how do you feel with what path forward is there for a fresh graduate who feels useless, helpless without a clear skill or income? So, I think that the first thing that you have to do is find a skill and master it. That's just I think it can be as simple as that. Find a skill and master it, because if you do not find a skill and master it, you are just going to be stuck in this endless illusion that you wake up one morning and things will just be automatically better. It doesn't really work that way, right? You have to find something that you love doing, or you find something that you think will give you fulfillment, you think you give you purpose and alignment with your purpose, and you have to chase it relentlessly until you gain mastery, right? Because depression tends to set in when we don't have a purpose, right? Or when we don't have something that we generally aim to, want to achieve, right? So, yeah, if you are feeling depressed, hopeless, purposeless, useless, I guess you're not useless, but you really have to find you have to find your purpose and you have to find a skill. Like do the research, right? Find something that it's probably lucrative, you love doing, helping someone else solve an issue, and just give yourself 3 months to attain a certain level of mastery. And then you just because you can't really depend on luck, right? As they say, luck is really just opportunity meeting preparedness, right? You have to be prepared before you find certain levels of doors that will open for you, right? So yeah. So last question on life mindset and spirituality. How do you deal with the internal conflict of being able to motivate others while secretly crying yourself to sleep, feeling lost and knowing what you love and not knowing what you love anymore? Another thing that I can relate to, right? I always say that like when I post stuff on social media, I always say that like I don't always want to see myself, or I don't want to see myself as some kind of thought leader, right? Or somebody that has everything figured out. And I think I do well to let people know that like I don't have everything figured out. I'm still trying to navigate life, but like this is what works for me to get to this point of my life, and I think that it could help you, right? So it's not really like an internal conflict. Let me just put it that way, because everybody has struggles. Like before you can motivate other people, you don't have to be like 100%, right? You don't have to be the guy that's figured everything out as well. You deal with your own struggles as well. So a lot of people I look up to, like the Alex Omozi types, the Jordan Peterson types, they have things that they're struggling with. Jordan Peterson is literally sick right now, and has been away from the whole social media space for a while. So a lot of their words and encouragement has helped me to this phase of my life, regardless of the fact that they also have their stuff that they're dealing with. So it's not really I don't really see it as conflict of or as internal conflict, right? Because I know like many of the things I've done, many of the things I've posted, many of the things I've written has helped a lot of people, right? And I feel really proud to say that because you know if you don't start to speak, you would not realize how much people are trying to figure out life and are lost. Right. So my laptop is almost dead. So I'm just going to go and charge it and I'll come back and wrap up the rest. Okay guys. So I really hope the video is still in frame like when I left to go charge my laptop. But anyways, if it's not, I'll try my best to edit some things out. Yeah, so the next segment of questions, finance, wealth, and trading. Interesting. So yeah, someone asked, what is the unspoken phase of being a successful forex trader? Successful is a very is a very is a very grand word. Being a trader that has, for the most part, figured out a lot of what trading entails. What is the unspoken phase? Now that I'm trying to like really think about it because just I really don't want to say unspoken because there are two different sides of trading content that you see like online, right? Where you a lot of people give their opinions, right? And on one side, it's really just gurus and people that want to sell you something, and then the other side, we have people that are actually giving good value. So for like the last 3 years, I've been on the value side of things. So a lot of it, I wouldn't really call it unspoken. I would just say like you just haven't gotten there yet. So, but yeah, so let me just say a lot of things that the gurus are basically don't talk about in your journey to navigate the trading industry, right? There's a lot. I think journaling really does help. A lot of people like on that side don't really talk about journaling your trades because trading for a long time would not really. And I also wrote an article about this, interestingly, not really an article but like just like a write-up on this on LinkedIn about mastery and time. So trading for a really long time would not really let you attain mastery. And I don't even think that if you are struggling, you might continue this for a very long time, right? But I think the only way that you actually do get better is when you keep refining what already works, right? So the very first part of your journey is figuring out what works because a lot of people say things like, oh, like no, when you spend time on the chart, yeah, you can spend time on the chart for years and still not progress because you are just simply spending time on the chart doing what does not work. So the first thing that you have to do is first of all you have to find what works. When you find what works, you have to reiterate. You have to do it as long. Yeah, you have to keep doing that one thing for as long as you can. Now, when you do that one thing for as long as you can, you have to journal that process. Right, every trade you take, you journal it. You write it down. Oh, where did I go wrong? Today was a win. How was my mindset? Why did I take this trade? You know, how many times does this trade show up in a week? What's the risk to reward like? What's the all those kind of statistics are very important, right? And a lot of gurus don't really like to talk about the statistics side of trading, which is, as I said, very key in your progress as or your on your journey to becoming like a refined or a better trader. Yeah. So, having found a niche, how can someone build wealth with limited resources? What level of sacrifices do you make, and what do you cut off or endure to create opportunities for yourself? Deep question. Very deep question. Haven't found a niche. I wouldn't really say I found a niche. I just think this is something that gives me like that aligns with my purpose and you know gives me a shot at financial stability. I wouldn't really think like of it being like a niche, right? But yeah, what level of sacrifices do you make? More than you think, right? Or more than people would like to, agree with, right? I remember in the video I made about the $20,000 video I made, I mentioned being a profitable trader at in 2023, late 2023. I became like profitable. Okay, I became profitable in 2022 actually, but I was trading like a very small account and I barely made like consistent profit from it until the company closed down eventually. So I wouldn't really count that as you know like consistent cash flow, but that was when I began to see profitability and learn to stop losing accounts and stop, But I really became profitable 2023. So 2023, but let's just say 2024 basically, because I 2023 I'm talking about like end of 2023, like September, October ish. So let's just say 2023, 2024, 2025, right? And you know, I it took me a while before I started to really upgrade my lifestyle, right? Because going from someone that, the biggest worry that I had at the time was like, okay, what would I eat today? Right. I made sure that at least like that got out of the window. Right. I made sure that at least I was able to feed myself. I was also in debt at the time, so I paid a chunk of debt as well, and I was saving money to basically scale up. Right. So I had to really sacrifice on the things that I really like would have loved to indulge in. I'm a very big perfume guy. For those that know me, like I also like big on fashion as well, and stuff like that, and gaming as well, right? At the time, I know that I could have bought like a PlayStation 5, but I did not. Right? I didn't buy my PS5 then. I didn't buy any new clothes. I didn't splurge on perfumes and stuff like that, right? I had just one bottle of perfume I was using at the time, and it wasn't even like an expensive bottle. I think it was like Latafa Assad or something like that, right? I bought the PS4 instead. What else? What else? What else? Yeah. So I didn't really go as much as I would have loved to go, because as I said, I was saving for a lot of stuff. I was saving for to buy my own accounts, because at the time I was trading my friend's account as well. I was trading to buy my own account. I was trading to, be able to feed myself constantly, be able to do a lot of stuff in my family. So it really took me until like 2024, I started to like ease into it. Like the ending of 2024 was when I started to like ease into being able to, you know, go a little bit further for myself. And then 2025, I was able to like do a lot of the things I eventually, did. I think I got my PlayStation 5 2025, as I think February 2025, if I'm not mistaken. But that was like because I already saved up the money, I already built a plan towards it and things like that. It wasn't really just like out of the blue stuff. So I really had to make a lot of those sacrifices for myself. Right? Yeah. So what is the maximum money you made from Forex in a year and how did you handle it? Very interesting question, very deep question. And I might go a little like I might go like a bit personal into this. So the most money I made, it's very interesting because sometimes I have to be careful of like things I say, because I mean my parents might watch this video. So, but I made a shit ton of money. Yeah, I made a shit ton of money. I made like north of like $30,000, around that $20,000 around that price mark. So how did I handle it? Hmm. How to handle it is a very that's another segment of the question. I did a lot of investing. I did a lot of investing, bought a lot of stocks and saved a lot of money for rainy season, right? And most of what I had left was just what I would spend, right? But yeah, I always had a dream of buying my mom a car, and that was a very funny interest. And I think honestly, that's like one of the biggest highlights of my life because um my I grew up in a family where it was like I didn't grow up poor. Let me put it that way. I didn't grow up poor, but at some point in our lives, like Nigeria happened, right? So it was kind of like a very shocking experience. It was a very shocking experience, going from kind of life that I used to. I stated it as a very interesting story. So the very first time in my life where I had rice for breakfast in the morning was when I went to boarding school in JS1. And then that morning they said breakfast was rice. I was like, what rice? Like, why would somebody wake up in the morning and eat rice? Because I basically grew up eating cereal like custard, oats, cornflakes, bread early in the morning. Those were like breakfast meal, right? So it was like weird to me, like rice in the morning. So, but I got used to it at some point in secondary school. And then one day, like we are at home and like I can remember very well, like there was no cereal, and my mom was like, "We're going to eat rice." I was like, "Mommy, rice." I think that was like a very eye opening moment for me. That like, oh, okay, yeah, shit has taken a turn in this house, right? But as I said, that's one of the things that Nigeria did to many many families, right? So yeah, my mom like lost her car at some point, and for a moment in the family it was like a struggling period, right? My mom got involved in like um bike accident like a couple of times, and I remember like 2019, I was 17 at the time. I would be saying it like I'm going to buy my mom a car one day, right? And it used to be like very, you know, and I used to say it like it was like, oh, I used to say it like one day I used to say it like it will happen next year, that kind of thing. And everybody just look at me like we are 17, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? And it was my goal. I wrote it in my notepad for a very, very long time. I just kept it there. Like, bro, if I make money and I use everything I have to do this one thing, like I don't mind, right? So I was also saving for that from like 2023, and then I hit that milestone in 2025, like last year. And I remember like that was like a very crazy experience for me because I just kept crying the night I was able to do that because it just felt like maybe everything eventually was worth it, right? Because and my mom was just she was happy, and she was telling me that like at some point she would sit down and think that is she ever going to drive a car again and things like that. So yeah, that's how I was able to handle a lot of that money, right? A lot of it went into that particular dream of mine. I was also involved in student leadership last year, and I used a lot of my money to finance a lot of things because I could not just be waiting on alumni. And yeah, I also, made sure that my brother was straight, taking care of my family as well the best way that I can. So I think that's where a lot of that money went, right? And also I got involved in like a lot of bad businesses. I still have someone that is owing me like shit ton of money, right? In fact, like that's secondary reason why I'm in Lagos as well. So yeah, I would like to say that I spend my money like very very wisely, right? I didn't really do a lot of like partying, spraying money, all those kind of stuff. I wasn't, and in fact I didn't even get a car for myself, and I could have at the time, to be very honest. But I just felt like it wasn't the time wasn't right for me, right? And yeah, so that's that. What advice would you give someone just starting on their financial journey, relating it to your own experience? Another very good question. I think this is going to be my best segment in this whole like question and answer segment, a question and answer video, because now, in as much as investing is very popular, right? And I also advise a lot of people to invest. I currently still advise a lot of people to invest, right? There's one thing that I will always keep consistent. You need constant cash flow. cash flow is king. Like if I was going to talk to somebody about their investing journey, right? I think that would be the most important thing that I would advise, right? If you had 100,000 naira, if someone like somebody asked me like, oh, okay, if I had 100,000 naira today, what would I do with it? And my advice is always very simple. First of all, if it was like a gift, let's say like you are 18, 19 years old, it was a gift to you, 100,000 naira, maybe for a family, or you've saved up your pocket money to 100,000 naira. Like many people just always come to me like, oh, what stock should I buy? What? I'm just like, okay, firstly, you have to understand that building wealth is very, very, okay, not very, very, but like it's very slow, right? Building wealth is slower than you would like to think. Because social media makes it feel like, oh, okay, if you buy a stock, you wake up one morning and the stock is, I see people that are just new into investing and then they're always like talking about like, oh, the price of MTN, the price and all these things like, oh, my stock dropped today. I'm just like, bro, you have to learn to buy and forget. Like you buy it and then you don't even remember that you have it, right? Because it's something that you're supposed to be able to do like it's something you're supposed to be able to do like systematically, right? And there's only one way you can do that. Like you can invest systematically is when you have income, when you have cash flow. So I always say, okay, if you have 100,000 naira today that you have saved up or that was given to you as a gift as a young individual, right? Take a chunk of the money, um, have a YouTube family, pay for YouTube premium, right? With your friends, right? If you are, I think it's six in a family. That means that if you are six in a family, you only get to pay twice, right? Twice in an entire year. Then the rest of the people there, right? I'm going to give you my rationale as to why I said that. Now, take six of your friends or six people that are willing to, be in that family with you and pay for YouTube premium. Right? YouTube premium is one of the best investments. Why? Because you can learn a ton of stuff on YouTube. And there's no better way to do it than without ads. YouTube premium also comes with YouTube music free. So you basically don't have to pay for like a music service. I haven't paid for any music service for like I can't even remember how long, maybe 5 years now. I just pay YouTube premium and it comes with YouTube music. So why I say that is because you need to learn a skill, right? And that's the cheapest way for you to learn a skill, YouTube. So you need to go to YouTube and figure out what you want to learn and then start your journey on getting a skill. Because when you have that, you can get a skill. Now the remaining part of the money, invest some of it into buying data to watch these YouTube videos, buying books and things like that. Because the greatest investment that you will make is in yourself, right? So if once you do that, you get a skill, you can monetize your skill to get constant income that you can now invest on. Right? Let's say you learn video editing, for instance. Like video editing maybe takes you 3 to 6 months to get up to speed. You can start getting jobs, maybe just for 20k a year, 30k a year. Maybe if you are taking 5 jobs of 20k every month, then you are making 100k in recurring income every month. And that 100k, you can now decide that okay, I want to be buying stocks with 20k. Out of you do that comfortably than taking the whole 100k that was given to you initially and then dumping it into like some stocks or some investment portfolio. Because when things become rough for you, you would eventually sell those stocks, right? So I think in my own journey, that was the biggest mistake that I made. I was hoping I would make this video at the end of the year or at a later time, but I think it's important that I say this now. Like that was one of the biggest regrets that I have when it comes to money. I should have created a system for cash flow, right? Or multiple sources of income. Because now my major source of income is struggling and automatically like my financial life is struggling, right? So and I did have the money, right? I did have the money to I could have set up a business or I could have set up something that could run basically without me. It could have taken me months to think about what I wanted to get involved in, but I'll have gotten it eventually. And because when you think about it, when you are able to pour a lot of money into in recurring income, investment becomes like at that point, like you could really invest in whatever you want without having to really think about it because the real work of investment is in the compound interest, not really in like how fast a stock can move or something like that. It's really in the compound interest. How often are you able to do it consistently and letting time just do its thing on your capital. So basically, that's how investment works, and that would be the advice I would give based on my own journey, as on my own financial journey and the lessons I learned. Um, how can someone get their emotions and psychology back to normal after a trading losing streak? So another trading video, yeah, losing streaks are absolutely normal. I think, as I said, when you have a system that works, right, you understand when your losing streak is getting out of hand, right? Understand when your losing streak is getting out of hand. Let me give you a very, very good example. I say something like, oh, I could never lose 5 trades in a row with the model that I had. I could never lose 5 trades in a row. And I got a shocker. Like late last year into this year. And then I realized my system was not the problem. The market had fundamentally changed. Right. And the only way I could realize that was because I had a system. Right. So I knew that, okay, my system cannot fail 5 times in a row, because like that will not make any logical sense for it to lose 5 times in a row. So when I noticed that I kept on losing and losing trades, I went for like a nasty losing streak last year. And then I realized then I zoomed out and I'm like, oh, okay, the market has changed. And I got to social media and I started seeing a lot of people complain. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not crazy. Like, I was very certain that like my system was not the problem. That the market has changed. So how do you get your emotions in check? First of all, you have to, as you go deep into the losing streak, you have to learn to manage your risk properly, because you're only a trader when you have capital to trade, right? So you have to make sure that whatever you do, you do not lose your capital. So you have to be very, very tight and strict on your you have to be very tight and strict on your risk management, because that affected me a lot. I was At some point last year, I was funded about $400,000 and I lost every single one of those accounts just because my risk management wasn't in check and I let ego like take over at some point. So yeah, that's a lesson that you learn from psychology. I think that's the biggest emotional um advice I could give you. The only way you could control your emotions is by reducing your risk. Simple. If you can reduce your risk, you can get your emotions in check better. If you're not really losing a lot, you can be able to manage your emotions better. But when you start to lose a lot, you start to spiral, right? And you start to make bad decisions. So yeah, and also take time out of the chart. Like if you're losing, take time and take time out and do some other stuff in your life, and then can always come back and figure out where you are making mistakes and fix your mistakes. Um, last question on trading, finance, and all that stuff. When you had your first major big payout from trading, how did you handle it and deal with the pressure to spend or buy big things? I think I already addressed that question, but when I had my first big payout, I first made my first 1 million naira. I was ecstatic that I made my first 1 million naira from trading, because trading, is something that a lot of people tell you that like, oh, it does not work, it's false, blah, this, that, all that stuff, right? And maybe in another video, I will address all of the lies, basically, and all of the conspiracies and all that stuff. I will address in another video. But my big payout, I was happy, but it wasn't really like, how did I handle it? There was not really anything to handle, because as I said, I was earning a lot of money at that point in my life. So I had to pay off debt. So when I paid off debt, it was very little that was left to me, maybe like 200k or 200k or 150k thereabout. So I gave money to my friends, my family, my girlfriend at the time. So I just shared. I don't give everybody 10k. I gave my brother 20. I think I gave my mom 20, I think, or 15, and then my dad 10, my girlfriend 10, my friends 10, 5, 7, like that, till like all I was basically left with me was like maybe 50k. But I felt fulfilled, because I just paid off it like debt that was controlling my life for like about a year and a half, 2 years. Secondly, I was also happy that like at least like for the next 1 to 2 months I could feed myself every day comfortably, right, with what I had left with me. It was just remaining for me to, keep figuring out the rest with my trading, right? So that was just basically it. That was how I spent my first big payout, and from there subsequently I started to do better things for myself. Um, eat better food, have better choices when it comes to things I could eat. What else? Yeah, bought perfume. I used to use smart collection at some point. How much was it then? Maybe 5,000, 4,000. Then I started to like, buy some Arabian dupes, maybe 20K. I used that too. So like, yeah, I didn't really do anything crazy with my first big payout. So yeah, next segment is relationships. What is the logic behind modern day relationships regarding being transactional versus being truly loyal? Hmm. I have a somewhat of an unpopular opinion when it comes to transactional relationships because I believe that every relationship is transactional, and I believe that every relationship should be transactional because we like to see transaction in the sense of like, I'm talking about romantic relationships now. We like to see transactions in the sense of like, oh, I'm in the relationship because of what you can do for me, or you get my point. But that's not how I see it. I think that relationship should be transactional in the sense that you know you basically no human being is going to be satisfied in a relationship where they feel like they are pouring so much more than their partner is pouring back to them, right? Or they are being so much more for their partner than their partner can be for them, right? And that in itself is form of transaction, right? Like, what do you mean? For instance, like when maybe your partner is going through a particular phase and you're there for them, you're showing up for them. Then when you are going through your own phase, they're not there for you. There's nobody that's going to be like, like there's something wrong. There's nobody that is not going to be like, oh, there's something wrong in this dynamics, right? So, in how much that people try to act like you demanding for, some kind of treatment is like crazy, but I don't think it's crazy. I don't think relationships being transactional is crazy because the only way that the relationship can flourish is if it's transactional in some sense, in the sense that the both individuals feel like they are both pouring into the relationship, right? And I think that that's some form of transaction. So yeah, but except maybe I don't really get your question, but like in terms of transaction and relationships, I think that's how I would define that dynamic. Second question: what are your thoughts on maintaining individuality and keeping parts of yourself separate in a relationship versus complete mind melding? One of my very good friends asked this question, and it's a very deep question. And I think I agree with that assertion that even when you're in a relationship that involves two people, right? I think that you should keep a part of yourself, right? You should keep your individuality, and you should, like sometimes like things that some things that you feel like, oh, two of us should do together. I think sometimes you should take a break and just do some stuff yourself and just take your own space. Like, I feel like it's needed for you to keep your sanity because your relationship thrives on the sanity of both individuals, right? In as much as they complement each other or should complement each other, right? Each individual's sanity is very, very important to that relationship flourishing. And I think one of the ways, or one of the best ways to, one of the best ways to keep your sanity is by keeping your individuality to some extent, right? Doing things because this is you, right? And this is what you want to do. This is what you want to. This is how you want to approach life, right? It's not like it's not every movie date that should be the two of you. Sometimes you should go alone, right? It's not every plan that you make about your future that should involve the both of you. Some should involve you and your purpose and what you want. Because as I said, you being great individually also helps the relationship in in terms of like duality. It also helps the duality of the relationship. Yeah, let me put it that way. So yeah, I would agree with that assertion. Are you in a relationship? If yes, how do you handle it alongside everything else? Currently, no, I'm not in a relationship, and I don't think I'm going to be in a relationship for a while, for a while, for a while, because yeah, as I said, I just left a relationship, and it was a very bad and messy breakup, and it's taking a toll on me personally and my whole mental health. So, and I'm not really trying to, because this year is very important for me to find myself, find my purpose, right? It's not like I don't know my purpose, but like double down on it. And next year I have law school, so I don't think I'm trying to bring anybody into, because I've I've heard a lot about law school, and I've heard about how demanding law school can be. So I don't think, if I was in a relationship prior to law school, sure, but like, right now I don't think I want to have to put anybody through the fact that, like, because a lot of people don't really understand that this is your journey, and understand how demanding it can be. So next year is also out of it. So maybe from next year, I don't know. I'm not really a strong believer in like looking out, like intentionally looking out for love. I think that like every single time I've experienced love, it happened without me expecting it. Right. The last one I just got out of, it came at a point in my life where I wasn't expecting it to. So yeah. So that's that on relationship. So I'm just going to answer the last questions. I don't know. AI said they are image questions. I don't know what image question means, but like, yeah, I think all these questions were asked by a single individual. Yeah, it was asked by a single individual. So I'm going to address everything. When did you discover your purpose, and how did you discover it? Interesting question. Question about purpose. I recently got into like an online thing with someone as regards purpose, and honestly, like, I regret what I said to them. I shouldn't have come at them at the way I did, and I also made sure to apologize. But yeah, I feel like it, people don't really understand what purpose means. Like, every other thing in your life, you are not going to get fulfillment if you are not if your purpose is not, like, if you don't find your purpose in life, right? And how did I discover my purpose? I'll say that I'm still on the journey of discovering my purpose, because in as much as like everything I really want to live a life that is inspiring to other people. I really want to help other people as much as I can. Like, so that also involves a lot of success and failures on my path to be able to direct other people, right? And that's one of the reasons why me and my friends started Astrove. So for those that don't know, me and my friends have this prop firm startup called Astrove. And the whole idea of Astrove is, you know, trying to help people, right? Because you realize that a lot of knowledge, or when people take their time to develop a skill, they try to hide information about that skill behind a paywall. So that's what, like, me and my friends decided to do. Like, okay, you know what? We paid our dues in this industry, right? And we figured out that there's a lot of people that haven't really figured out their their way around the trading industry and their financial journey, and we're basically just giving out all of that knowledge repository for free, basically, and trying to help other traders get up to speed and become better in their trading journey, basically. So yeah, that's what my purpose in life, basically. And how did I figure out this purpose? I think it was along my journey in life of trying to navigate success and failures, right? And then I decided, I was just like, you know what, like, people don't really have to go through life this way, like figuring things out by themselves. Like, I learned a lot of stuff as regard trading by myself, right? A lot of it was triggered by a lot of events that happened in my life, but that doesn't take away from the fact that, like, I had to navigate a lot of things by myself. I didn't really have a mentor. I couldn't really afford courses, so I had to search for a lot of information on YouTube and free materials online. And then I made mistakes and learned from them and grew from them, and made more mistakes and learned from them and grew from them. And I'm still learning and making more mistakes. And I'm also trying to make people aware that, like, right now, like, I'm not perfect. I'm still trying to figure out myself. I'm still trying to figure out my own journey and everything. And I'm not a finished product, right? So don't look at me as a finished product. But I also try as much as possible to help people avoid the pitfalls that, you know, I entered into. So yeah. How did you balance leadership, purpose, and academics? So I think most of these questions relate back to my time as a student leader. So how do I balance leadership, purpose, and academics? I don't think there's really much to balance when everything is intertwined, right? Because I take all of them as one whole piece. So I don't really have to like balance it. Like lead, leadership is in my purpose, right? Academics is in my purpose because it's all like my failures and my successes are all involved in that story, right? And I would say that's what my purpose basically is, trying to help as much people as I can and live an inspiring life, right? So yeah, I don't really think about balance when it comes to that. How did you start trading and how long did it take you to be certain you were ready to get into the trading market? I think I already addressed this. I started trading in 2021. I knew about trading in 2020, started trading in 2021, failed for a lot of years and eventually became profitable in 2023. So took me 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. So like 3, 4 years to navigate the whole industry before I became profitable. And when was I certain I was ready? That's the thing, you are never going to feel ready. You are never going to feel like, oh, I'm ready to now enter into the market. You just have to jump the ship, right? You just have to enter into it and then navigate your way around it, right? It's not really something that was like, okay, I'm ready now, right? But yeah, I also advise people that like, you know, don't just also jump into it blindly, right? Because if you're somebody that has money to spend, you end up wasting a lot of money. But I didn't have money to spend when I was starting out, right? So it was easy for me to just jump in. You do a lot of demo, a lot of things like that. I raised money a lot as well. I had family members borrow me money, blew their money, and learned from all that process till I eventually figured out what I wanted or figured out the whole industry and I was able to navigate the process. Um, yeah, you are one person that stayed out of drama even as a student leader. How was that possible? Staying out of drama. I think I'm a very aside from I'm a very like jovial person. My life is very very private. It's much private than people like to think, right? So and I just did that, as a student leader. Because as I said, if you have a goal and if you have a reason why you are here, right? And my reason as a student or why I got involved in student leadership was like, okay, I want to inspire people, right? Aside from that, I want to inspire people. I also want to show people that like leadership is not really difficult. You just really have to communicate. You have to get feedback. You have to be a visionary, right? And all those things. So when you are like in tune with all that, like it's very easy for you to stay out of drama. And yes, I'm very, very meticulous too with avoiding situations that can put me in rooms I don't want to be in. Right. I'm very, very meticulous with things like that. So when it comes to my relationship with like the opposite gender, which I saw in the question that you asked. So maybe when I get to that question, I'll answer that. So how did you manage to cope females um around you as a leader and a well to do person? I don't regard myself as a well to do person, but I'm comfortable. And how was I able to cope females? I don't know. Like I got out of a breakup last year, so I think that also helped with just trying to shun romantic relationships, and I was able to cope females. Like I'm not really like a I'm not really a I'm looking for the word so bad and I can't find it. Okay, yes, that's what I was looking for. I'm not really a philanderer, right? And I'm not a womanizer. So, and I try to keep my relationship with women very, very respectful and very, very like intentional, right? I'm very intentional about the kind of women I keep around me. And so it's very difficult for like, I don't keep a lot of female friends, right? So any person that is like in my circle, right, as like if a babe, right? I'm very, very conscious about what that relationship is, and I'm very intentional about making that relationship as respectful as I can. So yeah, I guess I think that was it. I don't really go around talking to women or trying to get women and stuff like that. So I think that was very easy for me. And again, as I said, I had a goal and I just chased my stuff. Um, so the last question on everything. So if you had to advise a 200 level student who's at a crossroads, what would you advise them to do, and what do you wish you had done better as an undergraduate? So at the crossroads at what? Because that's very at crossroads at what? That's very, very key piece of information you left out in your question. But in a general view, I'll just answer the last one. What did I wish I had done better as an undergraduate? As an undergraduate, I wish I spent more time being intentional about my career and being intentional about making myself a better person in my career or like in my field, right? Most of you know like that I studied law at the University of Ibadan, but it really did not take me on to like 400 level, like a year till I was done, 400, 500 level before I joined student finance club. And I only joined the student finance club because I had a passion for finance, or I have a passion for finance rather, right? And sometimes it takes like when you're out of that system to see that like, oh, a lot of people like took advantage of the information that they had in school, NHF, different scholarship programs and things like that. Well, I don't really regret it. I don't really regret it because I was also chasing a different vision and purpose for my life, and maybe that didn't really align. But I think that like I should have been more intentional about it, because in as much as like it helps you become a better person in your career, right? You also are able to make a lot of very, very, very good friends, right? Very, very smart, intelligent people as friends. So that helps. And it is outside the confines of the classroom, joining clubs, doing I spoke at ISEX Financial Summit last year. I did not even know like that a club like that existed until I was invited to speak at the event. And I was like, what? Like, and then I started to know like ISEC more after that event, but it was too late for me. I was already in my final year. My friend Neil is like the president. I don't know if that's the word they use currently. So like, and I really got to know him. He's a very passionate dude. And a lot of clubs like that. I really got to know a lot of people from student finance club as well. I met Oba at student finance club as well. So like, I'm just like, I missed out on a lot of years doing like, I missed out on a lot not being involved in things like that. JCI too. My friend Eniola, she joined JCI at I think 100 level, 200 level. I was just like, what? I'm not really interested in all this stuff at the time, right? And maybe on the bright side, maybe thank God I didn't join JCI. I probably would not have like the FOPA award, because they don't give it to JCI members. But clubs like that. So I think if you're a 200 level student, you should take advantage of clubs like that: Student Finance Club, JCI, ISEC, Tax Club, Energy Club, Sports Click. There are a lot, like so many in University of Ibadan. I don't know if you're watching this from any university, like you meet smart people, you meet intentional people, you meet people that are intentional about growth, you meet people that are intentional about their career, about living a better life, about living a purposeful life. So yeah, that's one of the things that I would say that like I wish I had done better, but I don't regret it, because my final year I made sure I made use, or I made the most use of the fact that I was a student leader, and the fact that I was in my final year, made beautiful friends in my final year and enjoyed my final year to the very last. I was very happy about the way my undergraduate days ended very, very beautiful. It was a very good closing to a very good story. So yeah, that's all the questions I have, and I hope I was able to answer all of it. This video might be very long, maybe an hour long, probably. I don't know if you made it this far to the video. I really appreciate you guys for sticking through with me, and being present in my journey, to try to fix everything. As I said, I'm trying to also not sway away from the purpose of this channel as well, and taking each day with intentionality and becoming better each day. Because as I said, as I always hear and as I always say, every day is day one, and I'm excited for the future. So see you guys when I see you guys. Bye.